My 4th of July message. Addicted to the 4th of July. Talk about being woken. There is nothing worse than a person who claims to be woke, but is sleepwalking. If you are of African descent, living in the United States of America, it is truly an oxymoron thing to say you are woken if you are addicted to celebrating the 4th of July. Yes, I would say addicted at this point because I understand addiction. But the chains of addiction can be broken if you are diligently seeking the truth. The 4th of July is a national holiday embraced by your family, friends, and co-workers. The bum word is cookout for the 4th. Since the 1st of July, I have heard people planning for the 4th of July celebration. I heard a plethora of fireworks last night. Cookout, enjoy your holiday, going out of town, you name it. It's the 4th of July. When a Caucasian person says something about the 4th of July, I typically do not respond, or I respond implicitly if they are speaking to me. But when a person of African descent says something about the 4th of July, I especially respond. But I want you to know that I respond in the most factual and historical and kind manner I can muster up. Even with facts, Negroes are the hardest people to convince. And coupled with addiction, it is almost impossible to convince Negroes. The internet is flooded nowadays with the iconic Frederick Douglass and his speech, "What to the slave is the 4th of July?" But even with the knowledge of the abolitionist Frederick Douglass, black folk remain addicted to a national lie. Think about it. The 4th of July was born out of the 13 colonists who rebelled against the King of England. The Revolutionary War was clearly an act of rebellion. The 13 colonists greatly desired independence from Great Britain for the newly established America, an infant nation and land ruled and stolen by British people. Now think about this. In 1620, the British colonists arrived in Massachusetts, one of the original states, but they were all British, as America did not officially exist then. In time, the British colonists would rebel against their king, King George III, and those rebellious British would fight for their independence from their king. In the meantime, the transatlantic slave trade was in full swing. Slaves were a lucrative commodity, bought, paid for, and financed by several backings, countries, and aristocrats. The lucrative industry of slavery would make the colonist wealthy and prominent in a world of wickedness. Now, that is where black folk come into the independence celebration. Our ancestors were slaves who did not experience the independence the British had just fought for. The justification for the British in waging war against their king, the King of England, and the King of the 13 colonies, was they claimed the king was a tyrant. 27 grievances were written and sent to King George III as to why the 13 broke off from their mother country. Those 27 grievances are part of the United States Declaration of Independence, 2 of which reveal the rebellious and racist agenda of the so-called Founding Fathers. Grievance 7. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands. Historians claim these migrants were of German descent and began to flock to pre-America during that era. But there was also a huge influx of people who were neither migrant or immigrants. Black people from West Africa and the slave coast of Negro land were chattel and viciously exploited by the 13 colonies broken off from Great Britain. The last grievance the colonists addressed to the King of England was grievance number 27. Grievance 27. He has excited domestic insurrections amongst us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. The first president of the stolen land of America, Mr. George Washington, and all the signatories of the Declaration of Independence believed the native Indians were savages. King George III vehemently withstood not only the insurrection of the 13 colonies, but the philosophy, religion, Christianity, and treatment of those black slaves. The Christianity practiced by the 13 colonies were deemed hypocritical by King George III of England. The king wrote a proclamation to Parliament denouncing slavery. King George III never owned a slave, and stated the difference in color, manner, and customs of the slave is utterly absurd. However, about 41 of the 56 signatories to the Declaration of Independence were slave owners. Now go figure why you Negroes celebrate the 4th of July. I truly think you are addicted to the lie. Now imagine if black people in America, who are descendants of slaves from the transatlantic slave era, would rise up and rebel against the founders of America, British. How would that look? Isn't it the exact same principle as what moved the British colonists to rise against their king? Help me to understand this. What is the difference? The 4th of July is proudly celebrated as a rebellion against Great Britain ruled by King George III. Please, how the hell does any of these facts and history relate to a Negro celebrating the 4th of July? Some ignoramuses would say, well, that's not the case nowadays. We are now independent. What are you black people independent from? America? The government? Your employer? Who? And what? It would seem to me that the rebellious, insurrection, racist colonists were the actual tyrants and not King George III of England. This view is not an attempt to exonerate the king or the future actions of England. Instead, present the real reason July the 4th is celebrated. A group of British people breaking off from their homeland, demonstrating rebellion, insurrection, hate, racism, and prejudice. And that reason has been the practice of the United States of America ever since. If you are woken, then you see. If you are a Negro living in America and you are still addicted to the 4th of July, then you are sleepwalking. Come out from among them, my people, says the Most High Elohim Yah. Shalom.